Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Pasha Marlowe, and this is the Let Pleasure Be the Measure podcast. And I'm excited today because this is the first time I've ever interviewed a real life couple, and super excited that it's a same-sex couple because you know my heart if you've been listening to this podcast for the last year, that I identify with the LGBTQ community, and I'm always thrilled to highlight anything that the LGBTQ community is doing for health and wellness and love. And so I welcome you today, Jennifer and Stephanie PageWise, who are quantum relationship coaches. Yes, I will be asking them right away what the heck that means, who work with the LGBTQ plus community. Their mission is to bring more love to the world, one relationship at a time. They focus on creating holy relationships through teaching self-love, boundaries, and communication. So I am down for all that because that includes some pleasure. And my motto is we can always sprinkle pleasure onto even our shittiest of days. And I imagine if you're in a relationship, you've had some shitty days as well as pleasurable days. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Oh, I think you're right on there.
It's been blissful the whole time, right?
Oh, perfectly 100% blissful.
Yes. Well, that's my thought. When my next husband is a lesbian, I'm never going to have any other relationship problems.
Never.
Oh, yes.
No, because it'll be a woman and she'll understand everything. And we won't even need to talk because we'll read each other's minds, and it'll be like connection and intimacy all the time. Is that how it goes?
In some world, maybe.
Wow.
But the connection and the intimacy can be tenfold with two women when you have all the other pieces in place and you work on the other pieces at all times.
Yes. I love it. How long have you two been together?
Well, that's a little bit of a complicated answer.
We met almost 13
you disagree?
years ago.
Surprise, surprise.
No,
a lesbian
disagree.
relationship has a complicated answer.
It's
right?
complicated.
We met
Almost 13 years ago.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were together for six years. And then we had to take a little pause.
Okay.
And it was a 2-year pause.
Okay.
And then we found ourselves back together after a while. And then we got married a little over a year ago.
Wonderful.
Honey, we're heading on 2 years in April.
Okay.
That's the pandemic. It's like, we don't even know what day it is, time it
we
is,
got
year it
married.
is.
Yeah.
We got married during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the reason that we, our very first date was on April 18th in 2009.
Okay.
So we got married on April 18th, 2020. That's why we chose that date.
Sweet.
And so we didn't want to change the date
It
because
just happened to be on a Saturday. It was like,
it was meant to be. So
Yes.
it was our 11th anniversary of our first date. And we're like, we're getting married. I don't care the pandemic happened. Yeah, we canceled the reception and everything else about it, but we still got married on that day.
and it was fun.
And it was
beautiful. I love that you took a pause and then reunited. I think that offers a lot of hope, because I think a lot of people feel like, if the relationship isn't working, it's done, it's a failure, and not reframing it as either complete or not for now, that there's always, options. I think it's so much is seemingly black and white, but it's so not.
Right. And trust me, in the beginning of the pause, we thought I was like, this will never. Yeah, done.
Never. I had the spark.
Put a period on that.
I had the spark.
I had none.
That's good. At least one of you does, as long as somebody does, right?
Yes, I kept the spark of hope that, well, maybe if.
Oh, nice. I love
and that if happened because we did the work.
That's the key, right? To any relationship, it's work. And even when it's going well, there's work to that, because if you start slipping and you think, oh, it's going well, so I don't really need to worry about communication or intimacy or getting alone time or self-care. And then you start, pulling yourself away and pulling apart from each other. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, quantum relationships, what is that?
So quantum refers to energetic,
Mm-hmm.
refers to quantum physics,
Mm-hmm.
and refers to spirituality.
Nice.
So basically, quantum physics are the next level of physics. We have Newtonian physics. And then Einstein started to play around with higher level physics and started to understand that atoms had intelligence and they behaved differently when you watched them. And so that was the beginning of the quantum idea. And then when you take it into spirituality, it's like, oh, everything's connected. And our frequency impacts how we are in the world. And Jennifer and I, part of our coming back together was a spiritual awakening and finding the ability to forgive ourselves and each other. And the reason we're relationship coaches is because we figured it out. And it's like, we can't keep this a secret. And so in our process, it's like, well, of course, we're quantum relationship coaches. We're not doing everyday relationship coaching. We're doing quantum relationship coaching. This is higher level stuff. This is your path to awakening to your higher self. So that's why the quantum relationship.
And is the journey that you find your path to your higher self individually first, and then come together as a couple to do that work together? Like, is it hard to do that work together unless you've done the work on your own?
Well, if you're both doing the work together, we believe, and we do have couples that are doing very well with it because they're doing it together.
Okay.
Where we find the disparity is when there's one doing it and not the other. Because sometimes, when one's raising their frequency and the other's not, you kind of get tired of the people that are not. And those people sometimes kind of, wane out of your life or aren't inside that real inner circle of the people that you really trust in relationship. Because relationship, we're not talking about just intimate relationship. We're talking about our relationship with you. We're talking about with our relationship with our children, our parents, the people at the grocery store, because we are in relationship with everybody. And relationship and relationships is where we awaken. It's that dynamic of how we relate with everybody and the world that awakens us.
Yes. And so what is the path to this spiritual awakening? Is it different for both of you, or is it similar?
For us, it was pretty similar. I think that it can be a very different path within the relationships, as long as people are truly working the path.
Okay.
And also appreciating and respecting their partner's path.
Right.
Because, we, that whole quantum thing, our following, our spirituality is kind of metaphysical. But some people are Buddhist and they believe that's their path to awakening. Some people have other more the typical in the box religions, and that's their path to awakening. So we aren't going to tell you that you must follow our path, but we're telling you that you must connect somehow.
Yeah.
But the concepts that we teach can be found in every tradition.
Good.
Right. So it's really about awakening to yourself and finding your authentic self. So clearing out your traumatic past, clearing out your underlying beliefs that create problems for you and your relationships. So that's the foundation. Know thyself.
Yes.
And then
strong in self-love,
very strong in self-love. And in that, you then become connected to all that is.
Yes.
Then figure out what your boundaries are. Where do you begin and someone else begins? Where do you end and where someone else begins? And what's okay with you and what's not okay with you? And then to learn how to communicate that with authenticity and grace. So that's kind of our paradigm. And every spiritual tradition on the planet, you can find those things within. So we've kind of alchemized them, brought in psychology, brought in quantum physics, brought
neuroscience,
in neuroscience, all these different things to kind of ground it in current thinking so that we can figure out how to do this on many levels at the same time.
Yes. And so the foundation, you're saying, like, the initial work comes from the healing of the trauma and releasing ourselves from the old tapes and the limiting beliefs.
Yes.
And taking
so,
ownership for maybe what we need to fix. What's the work that we need to do?
Yeah.
Do I not have good boundaries with people?
Mm-hmm.
So, we really work hard on getting people out of that victim mentality.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a
Mm-hmm.
victim of the world. We can
Right.
create whatever it is we want in this world
Yes.
by our actions and the way we react to other people. You could say something to me that maybe isn't what most people might think is friendly or nice, but
Mhm.
how I react is my business.
Yes. Yes.
So we teach people those things and taking ownership of your stuff.
Okay. Okay. Fascinating. And I could see very much how if in a relationship, be it an intimate partner or a family member who is not as willing to do that hard work, that's where the imbalance comes in intimacy. Sometimes I could call it like a desire discrepancy, in that like we feel like we're rising above or kind of growing out of the relationship, and it feels like we're potentially playing small to meet the other person's growth
Right.
and not able to expand fully, and that hurts.
It
on a
does. And
soulful level.
one of the other things that is really important is when we begin with a couple that maybe are having difficulties in their relationship, we tell them that we're either going to teach them how to consciously grow together, or we're going to allow them to consciously separate
Mhm.
in a loving way. That is our goal for folks,
Mhm.
because people come to us. I mean, anybody, if you're a coach and, people come to us and say, can you fix us? Well, we don't know if we can, because we can give you all the tools in the world. But if you're not going to implement them and make changes in your life, then it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much we give you.
Right.
But we can teach you possibly to come together, or teach you a nice way to come apart.
Mm-hmm.
And move
what
on.
And bond, you said?
And move on.
Oh, and move on. Right. But I guess bond or move on. And
Right.
so nowadays, what are the trends you're seeing in, I guess, the themes, the major themes that are coming up for people in their relationships right now? And right now, this is recording for those that want to know, December 2021.
Communication and boundaries are the
Oh my
biggest
gosh.
issues. We're not
Yeah.
taught them as children. As children, we're taught children to be seen and not heard. So are we allowed to communicate our needs? No.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is every family, but many.
Yes.
And are we taught boundaries? Are we taught that we're allowed to have them as children?
Mhm.
No, the parents tell us what we're supposed to do, or the adults in our life, the teachers, anybody who's in a, authoritative adult role to us. Are we
Yes.
told that we're allowed to tell someone, you know what, we don't like the way you're doing this, or we have a need?
Mhm.
So
So our voices are taken away at a young age, and then we have to
Right.
realize that our voices were taken away before we do the work to get them
Right.
back.
Right.
right.
Mhm.
And
I
that we're
f-
allowed to take them back.
Yeah. Right.
And in
Right.
these times of COVID, I think that we are feeling so uncomfortable in our skin
Yeah.
that we are starting to search for bigger answers
Mhm.
to why we're uncomfortable and how to solve this.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing the great resignation. I love this. Employers are terrified, and they should be,
Yes. Yes.
because
Absolutely.
people are not putting up with do it because I told you so anymore.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I work for an organization, and we're getting a lot of I told you so's right now. And there
Mm.
is mass revolt going
Really?
on. Oh, there
Okay.
is.
People are walking away.
Yes.
People are reclaiming or starting to claim their own worth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And it's, I'm kind of there, and it's distressing to be within it, because there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of crying and there's a lot of stuff happening. But I'm kind of sitting back and giggling because I'm watching these people
Growth.
come alive.
Yes.
Sometimes for the
Yes.
first time.
Yeah. Starting to find their voice and find their worth, and then also advocate for themselves potentially for the first time.
Yes.
Right.
That's a
And,
beautiful thing
and
to witness.
all of these skills are things that you use in every relationship.
Mhm.
I mean, if you don't know how to advocate yourself, then are you in a relationship that you don't have a voice?
Yeah, absolutely. and I find, now that we're entering, of course, the holidays, so I understand it's in the context of our particular time, but that often those old tapes and limiting beliefs that we learned in childhood are exaggerated, let's say, when we return home to our primary or biological families. And do you notice that a lot, that people slide back into lack mentality or whatever it is that's holding them back?
Sure. And
or shame.
With our population, the LGBT community, there are people that have been disowned because of their sexuality that we have, that, so holidays are even next step difficult because they don't have their bio families anymore and they've had to create their own.
Or if they do have their bio families, they're hiding their authentic self. Yeah. They go in and they pretend
to be
that
hetero.
Armoring up.
Yes, it's terrible.
It's so exhausting.
It is. And one of the things that we really learned is that when you armor up to go through your days, it's really hard to then knock it all off when you walk in the door at night.
Right.
And that's a big barrier in relationships in this busy world that we're in. And I think this is for everyone, not just queer relationships.
Every relationship.
When you go out into the world and you armor up to deal with your boss, to deal with the metro station, to deal with traffic, how do you take the armor off when you walk in the door at night to your beloved?
So you can have intimacy.
And how do you know you're safe? Like it takes so long to trust the universe and yourself and others after a day of armoring up or having our nervous system fried.
Right. And if you're not conscious to that armor, you don't even know you have it on. So you're sitting there in this relationship, you're sitting on the opposite sides of the living room, watching a sitcom, feeling completely alone and wondering why. Well, because you're both carrying 6,000 pounds of armor. Yes. Which is why you're sitting on opposite sides, because the armor is in the way of sitting next to each other.
Yeah. But then if one of you is maybe starting to awaken to that and aware, and you say something to the other one, like, but we're watching TV together. We're spending time together.
Right.
It's not quality.
No, and it doesn't fill the heart.
It doesn't feed your soul.
Right.
I have never shared this before. I don't even know out loud to anybody, but it's reminding me of the experience I have. And I haven't been in the same bed or bedroom with my husband for many, many years. But when I was, and we were right next to each other, maybe even touching, maybe even being intimate, I felt not just armor, but like a chasm, like a distance between us energetically. And I felt like it was like this, like foggy, energetic denseness that I couldn't get rid of or push through. And I couldn't be present to touch or even the love. Do you understand what I mean by
100%?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's and it is there. It's like your frequency is here and not necessarily above or below. It's just you're missing.
You're mismatched.
Like if you're vibrating at a 12 and he's vibrating at a 14, how do you connect with each other? And if our trauma gets in the way, when we don't feel safe, we are putting up an energetic shield. And so both of us have to decide we're going to start taking this down. And if one or the other can't make that leap, what do you do?
Yes. Right.
It's hard. Right. It really is.
And do you find lately that you've been walking more couples towards bonding and staying together, or do you feel that there's a trend of couples consciously and mindfully, lovingly parting?
I think it's really still is in that 50-50 zone where I'm not sure where things are going to go. I think,
and we do still, more than 50% of our clients are single.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we work with individuals too, who are trying to create all of this knowledge and work in themselves. So then they can energetically attract someone else who's doing the same thing.
Wonderful.
So yeah, more than 50% of our clients are single right now.
Okay. So mostly single, all LGBTQ. Plus.
Not even all LGBTQ, as long as they're an ally and they
Yeah.
vibe with what we teach, and it works for everybody, because it is all about energy and how we show up in the world and how we connect with other people in the world. There are some nuances in the LGBT community that, we do touch on, because there are some differences when you have two women. Women are more emotional. So
there's an intensity.
There is an
that
intensity
happens.
between two women in a lesbian couple that is just different
It is different.
than a woman with a man. It just is different.
But the more awake the folks are in a dual gender couple, the more awake the man is, the more intense the relationship becomes, because they become more and more in touch with their emotions and their real self. And it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch when we do have a hetero couple and watch the man all of a sudden be like, wow, I can feel my feelings.
And I can talk about them.
I can talk about them, and I can have tears running down my face, and I'm not called a sissy.
Oh,
beautiful.
Oh, it makes my heart sing.
Yeah.
How long do you typically work with a client?
We have two different things going on. Our main program is 12 weeks.
Okay.
Research shows that it takes 12 weeks in a couple to really bust through a lot of the things that keep us in crisis. And so we've used that model of the 12 weeks to try to get through. Interestingly, we are breaking through, and people are feeling really good within 4 weeks. And then we use those last 8 weeks to really solidify the everyday stuff and to really lock it in. So that's a beautiful thing. But we have an ongoing program. It's called our Foundations program. And that is ongoing. And we have people that have now been in there for a little bit over a year. And they are the growth that you see in that program is equally amazing. It's just a little bit slower.
Okay.
And we offer that as a maintenance, as an option for people after the 12 weeks. If they still want to work with us, they can go into this program, and that program, we meet with them twice a month on a Zoom call. We do some curriculum in advance that they get to see and watch and absorb. And then we have a Zoom discussion with them that gets really intense and deep about this topic and how it relates to their lives. And so after the 12-week program, they can move into that if they're interested.
Good. And in my work as a therapist and now a coach, I always find that there's usually a catalyst moment that gets people into this work. And usually it's quite challenging, and a crisis or a trauma, tragedy, that pushes us to really being willing to dig deep and do the work. Do you find that to be true with most of your clients, that some catalyst moment brought them there?
Absolutely. Pain pushes until vision pulls.
Nice. I like that.
Right.
Yes.
So it is, they're either on the verge of a breakup. There's been an infidelity.
Yes.
They've already broken up and they're done being in the same relationship patterns. That's a lot of it. People who are single will come in and it's like, I am sick and tired of living the same way that I've been living for the first 45 years of my life.
Yes.
And I'll be damned.
I'm going to have another
the next 30 years
like
are going to look like this.
A lot of midlife.
Yes.
Yeah. We get a lot of later in life people who were married to men, like as you have discussed yourself, and all of a sudden realize that, oh, I think I like women.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they've come out later in life, and now they're either in their first relationship with a woman, or maybe they're haven't gotten there yet. They're still living with the husband and haven't yet tested the water. And so, it's time to move forward on that. And we kind of help guide them into what they need to do. So maybe that they attract the right woman, as opposed to, oh my God, this is my second marriage and it's the same behavior in this man. Why do I keep attracting the same kind of person? You don't want to attract that now in a woman either.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes. Oh, it's such good work. And I know I can already think of, 10 or 20 friends and clients that are listening to this right now that will very much resonate with exactly what you just said. So I appreciate that you have that perspective. I think it's so important. It's a hard road to walk because there's still so much stigma and shame. And of course, if children are in the mix, there's that extra fear of, basically the world will fall apart if we finally step into our truth and expand. So.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and, we're also working with the trans community, and that's
Great.
a whole nother world.
Man.
Yes.
Especially if they're later in life and they have children, and that whole process of the children having to accept that, oh, my dad really now is a female, or, felt born in the wrong body. And, so that whole transition of, that's a whole nother world on top of it.
Absolutely. Although I find that the younger people are, the more open-minded.
If they're young.
It's the ones that have adult children.
The adult children.
Gosh.
Wow. We've seen like
even millennials are having issues with it. I'm like, wait a second. I mean, y'all have, fluid gender going on in so many of your friends, but your parents can't have that. Come on now.
Yeah. It kind of shakes the foundation of what we thought we knew a little bit more.
Yep. It sure does.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that sometimes people come to us with.
Yes. Oh, there's so many directions I would love to go with you both in talking about relationships. It just lights me up. So I think we will do a part 2 sometime, but I also am sensitive to the fact that most of my listeners are ADHD and they can only retain a certain amount of information, which I can resonate with. And so sometimes a little less is better than just like, tell me everything you know.
Right. That can be a little overwhelming.
Absolutely. So I'd love for the listeners to absorb all this. And what would you say if you wanted to, I guess, summarize or leave listeners with something, a place they can start to do this work?
Well, we have a great opportunity for people who are wanting to jump in to start this work.
Thank you.
We are doing a 6-week relationship reboot program.
Okay.
And it launches on the first set. It's going to be on Saturday, 6 weeks in a row, starting February 5th.
Okay.
So you can come in as a single, which is fine, or you can come in as a couple, whichever relationship aspect you're in. And it is a really deep dive to all of these skills in 6 weeks.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. And then for those that, for whatever reason, are not able to do that, is there something tangible, like a first step that you could offer so that people could kind of mull it over in their head? Is like, I'm going to work on that today. Like whether it's a takeaway point or a challenge, a starting point.
Well, I think really, who are you? I mean,
just that,
just the very, who are you? What do you love?
Right.
Yes.
What
I love it.
lights you up? Because
Yes.
so many people get so lost in relationship that they don't know what lights them up.
And it doesn't have to be about relationship. If
Right.
what lights you up is playing the guitar, start playing the guitar for 10 minutes a day.
I'm so glad we agree on this. This is why I called the podcast, Let Pleasure Be the Measure. First, ask yourself, like, what do I actually like?
So many people don't know.
No, right. Especially if you are stuck in a construct or you're actively parenting. We often say, well, what brings me pleasure is when my kids are happy. And I'm like, okay, now take the kids and the partners and the family outside of it, take your job out of the picture. Like, if you were by yourself, what would you want to do? And it's like, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know what I'd want to eat, where, do. And so I agree that we start there. And then when you find it, like you mentioned, like play guitar, do that, like do more of what lights you up.
Right. Because you're going to show up so much differently in your world if you do something that makes you happy and brings you joy. Because that is the highest vibration of love.
Right.
Yes. And then
you got to do it.
Yes.
And even if it's 5 minutes a day, don't tell me that nobody can find 5 minutes to do something they love.
Set down the social media and go do whatever you want to do for 5 minutes.
I wholeheartedly agree. And a lot of the folks who are listeners with ADHD often feel like, well, I have so much to do and all the to-do lists and I can't get anything done. And so I can't play the 5 minutes guitar because I'm already so behind. And I say, no, let's do the thing that lights you up, that gives you that dopamine hit, that gives you energy and
Then you can do
enthusiasm.
the other.
Yeah, do it first. And they're like, what? I can't do it first. I need that's my reward. I'm like, okay, reward yourself first. Why not? Why not?
Right,
Why can't we
right.
Eat cake for breakfast.
Just do it. Because you're right. It gives you the dopamine hit, and then you have the energy and the focus to do the other things on your list.
Yes, there's a famous book, and I can't remember the author, which is terrible, but it's something like eat the frog for breakfast. And so the idea is do the hard thing first, just get it out of the way. And what you were just saying, Stephanie, eat the cake for breakfast. Like some people need that. Like you don't always have to do the hardest thing first. You might eat the cake or play the guitar, and that allows you to feel like you enjoy life enough to care about these other tasks that are hard.
It really does give you that boost. When I'm like, so I'm a counselor in my day job, and oh man, sometimes I'm just like, oh, I got 12 notes to write today. So I go play the guitar for 10 minutes. Then I've got some like juice going. I go pop out 10 notes, and then I go play the guitar for 10 more minutes, and then I go pop out the rest. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the way it works. It's okay to do that. Give yourself permission to enjoy the world.
Yes, I love that. All right. Way to wrap it up and circle back to the theme of the podcast and everything. Thank you. Let pleasure be the measure. Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer and Stephanie. This has been fun. I love meeting you and talking to you. And I will absolutely in the show notes add in the information that you gave us about the upcoming programs.
Yeah. And the other thing, just quickly, and I know you'll put it in the show notes, is we have a free Facebook group and we teach in there for free every Thursday night. So, our business is Enchanted Awakenings. So our group is Enchanted Awakenings on Facebook.
That's handy.
And so convenient. It's a free group. We teach, and all of our stuff is recorded in there. So you can go back and look at what we taught last week or last year. It's there.
Wonderful. Such a beautiful resource you are to all humans.
All humans.
So good. Thank you. Such a pleasure meeting you and having you here. And for those that are listening outside of checking with Jennifer and Stephanie through the show notes and finding them and Facebook and beyond, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook or Instagram. I'm on Pasha Marlowe. And my email is pasha@pashamarlowe. And my website is pashamarlowe.com. So super easy to find me. I actually in the show notes always include a free coaching call so that we can connect, we can tell each other stories, and we could figure out what resources really would meet your needs the best and what offerings out there. There's so many beautiful offerings. So I'd love to meet you all, and please share and review and all the things, but definitely share it if you think that something that was said today would resonate or help heal one of your loved ones. All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.